All right. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to give it a couple minutes to get people the chance to join. Well, to give, not get. Sorry. All right, we're at 8:25. I guess we can go ahead and get a little started. So welcome back, PM peeps, to PM Corner. Yes, I know normally I would have had a subject for you, but today is just one of those days where things have just been very busy and I've had no time to really research the subject that I was going to present. So I thought maybe today we could focus on basically Microsoft Project. I know there's a lot of tutorials on YouTube. I know that some people are like, well, I could just get this on YouTube. Why do I need to watch a live stream? Well, I think it might be helpful just to see it happen in real life. One of the consistent things I noticed too with YouTube channels is that they tend to go off of templates, which, as you can see on the screen, you can see there are templates that are readily available for you. You're better able to just automatically use them. But the problem is that doesn't really work, in my opinion, because every project is unique in its own way in terms of scope, in terms of what the client's looking for, maybe milestones that they have interest in. It could be a number of things, and a template tends to not serve the best purpose. Now, if you're in construction, for example, that makes sense. You might want to use a template because how you build a house is pretty standard. It's just the only difference is you have to maybe order more material and understand how big the square footage is because maybe you're building a mansion versus a 4-bedroom house, for example. So that is useful. But when it comes to software development, and yes, they do have agile project management templates in Microsoft Project, but again, the thing is that your project could be very unique and different depending on what the client's looking for. One moment. Sorry about that. So, we're going to build a schedule from scratch. And that's basically what I'm going to do. And I do recommend that you follow me on Twitter because my link tree is there in my bio, and you can access my Udemy course that goes over the basics of of the Microsoft project. I highly recommend it. I really enjoy Udemy. This is not a plugin, by the way. I do enjoy Udemy. I find that Udemy is very helpful in courses that you may be interested in. It can also have courses on sale. So even if it's, out of your price range for a moment, you can still go in there and wait and put it in your wish list. And when it's cheap, which I've noticed very frequently, Udemy has always got some kind of sale going on. So you can purchase that course if you save it in your wish list. Just a thought. As I said, you can access my Udemy page and you can see my well, it's not free, but you can see my Microsoft Project, a practical tutorial course. And that you can keep forever. You don't have to worry about losing the course. You can come and revisit it as often or as little as you want. It's there for your purposes. But for this stream, we're just going to do a live Microsoft project schedule build right now. So, of course, we're going to take a blank project. As I said, we're going to build from scratch because you're going to learn how to actually build it, not use a template. So, you're going to highlight blank project. and just give it a second. Now, as you see here, everything is up. So, first things first, we're going to take all new tasks and change them from manual to auto scheduled. And that's going to help a lot. Now, before I get too any deeper into this, you know, donations are accepted. It would be much appreciated if you would like to keep this channel going. You know, you don't have to donate a lot, just whatever you can, perfectly fine. In terms of my logo and banner, and I don't know if I mentioned this in my previous 2 streams, but I'm going to quickly go over this. Please give the artist a follow. She did a great job with my logo, and she will have my banner to me soon, and she's done a really great job with that as well. Give her a follow, give her some love, you know, support her in her art, and it'll be much appreciated. Okay, so now back to building a schedule. So as I said, at the bottom here, you see there is a new task, and you change it from manually scheduled to auto scheduled. Why are we doing this? Because we want everything to start auto calculating. You don't want to have your project file be manual, because when you're trying to figure out, am I within the dates that, you know, my client's asking me, or a date that my superiors are asking me, or that was contractually a contractual obligation, you need to be able to auto calculate so you make sure, because that can help you be able to make adjustments as you need, versus when you do manual schedule, it doesn't do anything. And I can show you really quick. So say take task A, or one, yeah, let's do task A and let's do task B, right? So I'm going to change this to manual. And so you see here, this is manual. Now it was auto scheduled for a minute, but watch what happens. So the auto schedule, if I increase the duration, it will automatically increase or change the finish and start dates, right? Same thing if I throw in a constraint. So I'm going to insert a column, I'm going to do constraint date. And so let's say I want this to start on December 1st, 22. As you can see, and you can see it in the Gantt chart too, this moved. Now see when I do it for this manual task, I kind of did it. It kind of does it. So it kind of does a little bit, but say I link these together. Oh, I think it's because it's an auto schedule. Never mind. When it's manually scheduled, so let me change this to manual. Manual. So as you can see, if I add a new task now, let's see it. Let me add task C. This will be a better example than task B and A. So as you see, unlike in auto, where everything updated accordingly, right? This didn't, because you're automatically in scheduling tasks in manual. So it doesn't make a date in any way, shape, or form. So you can almost manually pick your dates, but let's say if I tried to link these together, will it do anything? Now it will, because I linked them because they're auto. So let me just undo all that so I can show you. So task C, as you see, it's manual. So here's what I can do. I can add duration if I want to, but it doesn't change the dates, as you see. It just gives the duration, which, okay, kind of useful, but not really. So that means I have to manually pick the dates for it. And of course, if I link, let's say task D, I'm curious, will it do anything? Now it kind of does it. So as you can see, it kind of will do some things, but not really. But as you see, it's not taking in consideration any constraints if I were to throw it. And I probably could, and it will probably do something. But when we start adding resources, for example, and cost, it's not going to automatically do it. So that's just kind of a little example for you. So I'm just going to make a little summary. So how I did that was go to the task tab and go into insert and summary. So I'm just going to rename this to example auto versus manual. And that way you have it. But we're going to obviously change this back to auto schedule for all the tasks because we want to have some real fun. Okay, so I'm just going to close that up, and as you see that when you have a summary task, you're going to see this little arrow. So all you just need to do is close it up just like that. Okay, so that is the first thing, is to set everything to auto schedule so you can have all your calculations accordingly. Then the next thing we need to do is we need to set the project information. So there's a tab called project, then there's project information. You're going to click on that and it brings up this little box here. Now, of course, we haven't named the project yet or the file because I haven't gotten there yet. But once you've named it, it'll obviously show it up here. So here's some ways we can look at this. So we're looking at the current date, right? So the current date is today, obviously, November 10th. And then we can set the schedule from project start date or project finish date. What does that mean? So we can pick a date in the past. If we do a start date, we could pick any date in the past. That can then help us build the schedule out based on a past date, which I don't recommend, because if you have to make a schedule for something that already started in the past, you are already severely behind. And especially from a project management perspective, if you have not identified your scope or anything of that nature, and you're just now in the middle of executing, monitoring, controlling, building a schedule, you got bigger problems. But with that said, we're just going to proceed on with the start date, and then we have another function called project finish date. This is where I can pick any finish date in the future that I would like. Just depends, or it can be a client requirement. Just depends, again, on your contract. And you can change it to where you can base it off the finish date and basically do what is called backwards planning. So there's backwards planning, is meaning we go back in time from the finish date that we're expecting to see when we should or need to start in order to meet said finish date. But, the standard is always from project start date, because there's a little bit of hope that you're already planning before you even start executing. And then, of course, there's a status date right here, which we're not going to do quite yet, because status date sets the date of how much of the tasks you need a status up to. So if I set a status date of today and I don't have any tasks, well, that just doesn't make sense, because what are you statusing? And then, of course, there is the calendar date. And so there are the built-in calendars of standard, night shift, and 24 hours. 24 hours is, weekends are included as part of your schedule, which if you're like a manufacturing facility, for example, you might use that because you might do some production, on the weekend. Just depends. Then you have night shift, which includes, a later shift outside of the normal working hours that the standard calendar has, which is basically, think of it as your 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job. And that's generally how we keep the calendar. But we're going to also build in a holiday calendar really quick, just to kind of get you into the mode of how to build that in. Then there's also priority, which this is where, you just set the priority of what level it is depending on the project. And then, of course, when you have everything filled out, you can then go to the statistics field or the statistic box, and it gives you this information of current baseline, what you've actually done in your variance. And this is really helpful in some ways, because if you want to give an overarching understanding, not in detail, but overall, this is very helpful. Okay, so now we're going to add basically our holiday dates, right? So you want to keep you can do the standard calendar, or you can create a new calendar. And we might do that, but I'll just say we're going to make a copy of the standard calendar because we want to keep maybe weekends off. In the future, also, if you want to have any, schedules built on the other calendars, we can most certainly do that, and you can see how that works. But we're just going to go with the standard for today. And so we'll call this the holiday calendar. Now, this is a best practice that I tend to do, which is to basically build out your holiday calendar at least 5 years. Because most projects, even though in definition you may think, well, if a project's a temporary endeavor, that means there's very short time. Well, not true. You can have projects that can go for a few years. It just means that you have a definitive beginning and end. That's part of the definition of a project, is it's not only a temporary endeavor, but temporary is subjective. What's objective is the definitive beginning and the definitive end of the project. So keep that in mind. And of course, again, as part of the definition, you're also creating a unique product, service, or result. So now we're going to build in the holidays. So we're going to go with 2023 since that's next year. So we're going to pretend like we're going to start this project next year. Now, we'll just do for the year only. So I base the calendar off the government holiday calendar. And that's just because I want to make sure that if I'm dealing with government officials, for example, as a client, there are days that they will not be working, right? And we can kind of acknowledge that. So, with that said, let me just pull up federal holidays. I'm not doing this on the laptop. I'm pulling out my phone. 2023. Here we go. Okay, so first is New Year's Day. So this is how you're going to do it. You're going to do New Year's Day. So we got New Year's. I'm going to say MLK Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Yeah, it's not letting me because of the dates. So hold on one second. Yeah. Stop getting mad at me. This is the other thing too. If you don't do things right for Microsoft Project, it yells at you the entire time. So just FYI. All right, now we can go ahead. MLK Day, which is January 16th. Boom. Now you can also do the same thing up here, but I just tend to do it down here because that's just my preference. But you can go up here, for example. So the next day is what? Washington's birthday or President's Day. So that's the 20th. So you can just click on it and then you can say this is President's Day. And as you see, it updates it accordingly. And you can see that now you have President's Day set. So it's up to you. It's up to what you're comfortable with and what's your preference. So moving on, the next day is March, April, May 29th. That's Memorial Day. Don't mind the noise. It keeps doing that because, it needs to make its happy dance because, it's Microsoft Project. Juneteenth. And then Independence Day, July 4th. And then Labor Day is September 4th. Per day. And then we want, Columbus Day, they still call it Columbus Day. But we also know it as Indigenous People Day. And then we also have Veterans Day, which is November 10th. Which, by the way, happy Veterans Day for those who are veterans. That's occurring tomorrow. Then, of course, Thanksgiving. Now, why are we doing this? We're pretty much making exceptions in the schedule that certain days are just not going to be working days. And that is perfectly fine because this is going to help as part of that calculation that we've been talking about, because you want to have that available and ready. Now, of course, now we built this 1 year in, right? So we're going to pretend this is a 1 year project, for example. So you hit OK. Now, that does not mean the holiday calendar is in place, because when I go to project information, it's still the standard. So what I got to do is change it to holiday calendar. And then, as you see, it incorporated the calendar. So I'm going to save this really quick. Let me just, don't mind all my different students here, because that's what I also do. I tutor students in this stuff like Microsoft Project and, let's see, we're going to call this Twitch file 1, and I'm just going to put the date, because that's, I'm a creature of habit. All right, I'm just going to save that. And there you go. So now we saved it. So of course you can see it says Twitch stream file. So of course if I open up project information again, it's going to say the name of the project. Now, we've set our holiday calendar. Now the next thing we need to do is add in our resources. Now, remember the steps. Set everything down to schedule, build in your holiday calendar, and now add your resources. So in the task tab under the Gantt chart, which is the view, we're going to go to resource sheet. Resource sheet is where we add in our people, products, materials, whatever it is you want, right? And you're going to see in a minute what's going to happen. Now, before we do that, let me just go back to the Gantt chart really quick. I want to get rid of the, where is it? I don't want this. Where is it? Where's timeline? Should have been in view. Yeah. Psh. View tab, get rid of the timeline for right now. We don't need it. It's not necessary. So we're going to go to task. Now we're going to go to view, Gantt chart. We're going to do resource sheet. And as I said, we're going to put in our people, materials, whatever, right? So let's just say we just do people for right now, okay? As I said, we can do other types of resource types and calendars and so forth in a different stream if we want. So let's just say we got Peggy, John, Mike, Sally, Alex, Jessica. Yeah, and that's good enough. Okay, so you build in your resources, which you can put names in. You can put full names. You can just do, first names. Although I wouldn't recommend just doing first names because you may have multiple Jessicas, Alexes, Sallys, Mikes, Johns, and Peggy's, and so forth. Now, when I input my resources, you see that the automatic type is work. So there's multiple types. You have work, material, and cost. Work is people. That is the person who is going to perform the tasks. Material is obviously the material may use, which again, if you're building a house, you may want to include a material piece. And then there's just cost, meaning it's just a cost to you, but you have to, acknowledge that this is part of a specific task potentially, but it's a cost to you as the contractor, the seller, the one who's doing the work. But for right now, we're just going to stick with just resources. Then there's material, which if you chose material as a type, so let me give you an example. Example, material. So as you see, it just automatically makes it work. But then if I change it to material, all I'm looking for is the standard rate, cost of use, and of course, if it's prorated, but we'll get into that a little bit. And then I can say this is like example, material, example. And I can name what type it is. So if, for example, again, if you're building a house, you may name the material as wood or as concrete, cement, whatever it is you need to do. So as you see, you still have like a rate. Then let's say example cost. So again, it's automatically work, right? But change it to cost. And as you see, unlike work and unlike material, there is no dollar sign that you're associating it to because, again, it's a cost to you. So those are examples. We're not going to use them, but they're there for a reason. So now we've looked at what the material label is. The initials is just telling you, what the initials are. You don't really have to use that. It's not very useful anyways, because as you see, like we got a John and a Jessica, and guess what? They both start with J. So that's not very helpful to use. Groups, you can set up types of groups that a particular person's part of. If you hover at that, it's the name of a group that the resource belongs to. We can do that if we really wanted to. Let's just pretend this is like software development or something. So this is engineering. This is business, project manage, or let's do PMO. Let's do development. Let's do testing. And let's do PM or project manager. Okay. So now we've done that. So you can put groups if you want to. Sometimes most times in my career, we haven't done that. So don't worry if you don't use it a lot. Now, the next important thing, and something that I'm going to harp on a little bit, is that we have what is called a max. Now, as you see, everyone is set to 100. What the percentages tells you is the amount of a person you have towards a task. Now, 100% means a full person. So that means you can have a full 100% person, which naturally everyone would go, well, yeah, that's a full-time person. But there can be part-time people, which if you wanted to make that interesting, you could change the percentage there. What I have seen done in the past as a manipulative tactic is this. Pardon me, sorry. What I've seen as a manipulative tactic is this. I have seen people use the resource max and put it to like 1,000. Because as you're going to see when we start adding tasks and adding the resources, there's going to be resource over allocation. And some people will put it at 1,000% just so it doesn't show over allocation. Which isn't good because that makes your tool kind of useless, especially if you got to make sure that all your resources have like work-life balance, for example. They're able to meet their deadlines as they're estimating, all that fun jazz. If they're not, you need to be able to see who's being over allocated so that you can make adjustments as necessary. Maybe you need to put another resource towards it to help that person. Maybe you're realizing maybe they're not the right fit and we need to switch resources around, whatever the case may be. But if you hide that by changing that percentage to 1,000, you're not doing yourself a good service. So we'll kind of play with that in a second, but let's just get through some of this first. So standard rate, that's just basically what you're paid on a regular basis. Cool. This is your overtime rate. So that means if, for example, you're not salary, you're hourly, you'll get paid by the hour. So that means if you work past a certain number of hours, which usually is like a 40-hour work week, then basically you get overtime pay, which that percentage can vary from company to company. We'll play with that too. Cost of use. So basically this is where a resource, how much does it cost to use a particular resource? So that can be more applicable to, again, if we're doing manufacturing, for example, machines. So how much does it cost me to use that machine over time? Which also means you can be calculating depreciation value, which that's more of a accounting term, and most project managers are not accountants. So we kind of know what it is. We kind of know how it works. Don't ask me like specific details on how to calculate that. But you can incorporate that into the project file just so that you keep track of it, because there are a lot of great reports that we can use in the future once we start adding in, of course, tasks and so forth. Then the accrual rate, you have multiple types. So you've got prorated, you've got start and end. So prorated is, over time. Start means you get paid up front, end means you get paid at the end. That's basically what that means. Clear, easy, breezy, simple, to the point. Then you have what is the base. So again, remember how I went into the project information and changed the calendar from standard to holiday? So all the resources that I built in are now based on the holiday calendar that I built into the schedule. Then there's code, which not really anyone uses, an abbreviation or number you want to enter as part of a resource information. You can do that if you want. I haven't seen people do that. You could input like employee IDs or something, so you can create something along those lines and put it in. But most times people don't do that. So for fun, let's go ahead and make some standard rates and overtime rates just for fun. Let's see. This is just for fun, so don't be like, oh my god, why would you pay an engineer only $50 an hour? Don't worry about it. This is for fun. Let's do 20. Let's do, yes. Oh, that's something I should have showed you, but I'll show you after we get through this. 80. Oh no. 35. 100. There we go. Okay. We're going to save that again. And then overtime rate. So I'm just going to, for fun, I'm just going to make it 50%. So if I do 50 times 0.5, add another 25, so that makes it 75 an hour. It's 90. This is 30. 120. We're going to make this 53. We're going to round up because it was 52.50. And 150. So there you go. So basically the overtime rate is 50% of the standard, 50% added to the standard rate. So that is what we're going to go with. And of course the standard rate. So this is going to be a lot of fun when we start adding in tasks. So now we build in these resources. We're going to go back to Gantt chart. Now, before we begin building in tasks, and oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to put this Gantt chart all the way kind of like here, so you can start to see how it comes together as a picture. But here's a way to be able to have an auto save option. So you can do is go to File, and at the very bottom there's Options. And just give it a minute, it's thinking about it. So there is a function called Save. And there's an auto save that you can choose where you click on the, you check the box and you can pick however many minutes you want it to save. So as you see, it's doing it every 10 minutes. And you can choose when automatically saving. So you can do save active projects only or all open projects. And you can do a prompt before saving, or you can uncheck that box and it will just save for you automatically. Completely up to you. I like the prompt just to make sure that it's actually doing its job. Because sometimes project has been very mean to me and not do things properly as I ask it to, and then it gets all picky. So of course, we're going to do one more thing in the project information. So I want to go by the finish date, and I want to go to basically this 1st of January 2024. So that's my project finish date. Now, as you see, nothing has updated here, right? Because it's already far out in the future in terms of the tasks. But we're just going to start as if we're going to do the project next year. So I'm going to call this the hybrid project example. Now you're probably going, well, what do you mean by a hybrid project example? So in project management, we have three types of projects. You have what you may hear in the industry as traditional or waterfall, which means you're doing everything sequentially in order. You're not doing things in any way parallel with each other or anything like that. You kind of could, but you still have a lot of sequential steps. Agile, if some of you have heard what agile is where you're a little more adaptable, you're more flexible, you're adjusting to changes as they happen. That's agile. Hybrid takes both the good of agile and waterfall or traditional and bringing them together to work as a cohesive team, which in most cases for software development, there's a lot of waterfall activities, whether people want to admit it or not. And I'm going to show you how that looks because a lot of people don't realize that in reality, the way you look at it from a Scrum perspective, there are activities that are done sequentially. It's going to be fun. Some people are going to get mad at me, and that's okay because you know what? Reality is reality. So, how do I go about this? Actually, you know what? No, let's do an agile project example. Because I'm sure someone out there is going, well, how would I build a agile project? I don't know how to do that. Because a traditional, that's easy. That's kind of like building a house. Yeah, building a house is like a very traditional. Let's do agile. So now we've got our summary line and we're going to indent some tasks. So just 1 second. So let me just insert one for right now. So all you do is you go to, in the task tab, insert, and you can insert a task. So I'm going to highlight this, and then up here on the task tab under schedule, there's these little paragraphs with arrows that point left and right. You want to indent to the right. And there you go. Now you have your new summary. So, well, I want milestones. I generally call them major milestones, so I'm going to just keep it the way I do it. Major milestones, and then you can have an initiating phase if you wanted to. But then we're going to get into the releases. Release implementation. Okay, so you got to make sure you have certain things in order before you start doing that. So, major milestones. So, in order to insert a milestone, all you need to do is go to task, insert, and milestone. And then again, just like a task, you indent it to the right. And now this creates a summary line with a milestone underneath. So let's say we're going to do milestone 1, 2, initiating. Let's say we do 5 releases. Or, yeah, 5 releases. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so major milestone agile project start. Control C, and I'm going to put here, and I'm going to say Agile Project Complete. And I'm going to say major milestone, initiating phase complete. Sure, milestone, release 1 complete. And all I'm going to do is just pull this down and change the 1 to 2, 3, 4. Oh, I said I was going to do 5 releases. Interesting. Now, if you're looking for a different way of editing, you can just double click on a line. It's taking a minute. And then you can just change it here and just hit OK. Or, which I should have shown you while I was still in the options, you can go to File and then Options. And I believe it's under Proofing. No, I think Display. Yes, display. So show these elements. And right here you see entry bar, which is what I have up here. You can check that box because in general it's not checked. So you need to check that box if you want it. And then of course you can pick other items as well. So that's how to find it. So file, options, display, show these elements, entry bar, check the box, hit OK. And you'll have the entry bar just like I do. Okay, so now we got our milestones. So now let's start with initiating phase. So again, you're going to insert a task. So you're going to highlight the release implementation and the initiating phase because when you insert a task, it's actually going it's going to insert on top. And that's where you want it to be because you want it to be under initiating. And of course, like anything else, you indent. Let's see. So now here's the thing about being a master scheduler or doing schedules in general if you're a project manager with no scheduler. You really need to think about the logical understandings of how things need to be done for your project. If you don't, you're going to run into a lot of problems. I'm just telling you that right now. I know I keep saying that, but this is reality. Like, if you don't take the necessary steps and you cut corners and you don't do things properly, you're going to have a lot of issues. And that also comes with schedules, that comes with scope, communications, stakeholder management, you name it, it happens. So, I'm thinking here. Okay, so build business case and benefits management plan. You want a peer review, incorporate feedback, final review, submission, client approval. Build project charter. You want to draft it, peer review it, incorporate, finalize, submit, and approve. Okay. So build business case. So when you're making tasks, you always start with a verb to describe what it is you're doing. And that's best practice. Other places may say differently, but don't worry about it. Build, yeah, benefits management plan. Now, why am I doing this? Why am I saying build a business case and a benefits management plan? Well, here's the thing. In project management, if you have participated in my last live streams, which if you haven't seen them, they're not on my Twitch anymore. They're on my YouTube channel at PM Corner, same name as my Twitch channel. And we talk about initiating, where this is one of the most important phases of a project because you need to understand business value. Okay, so if you don't understand the business value of your project, you're going to have problems again later because then how are you going to plan for something you're not really sure what the business value is or what you're going to get out of the project as a whole. So that's why you need to have the business case and the benefits management plan because it feeds into the project charter, which is one of the 7 key important items that I've talked about before in the Challenger discussion and in my first live stream. So then you have these. So, and the beauty of this is that these can start in parallel with each other. But then, of course, you have to do peer review. Well, you got to do conduct peer review of business case and benefits management plan. Okay. I'm just going to kind of push this out a little more. There we go. And then you're going to incorporate peer review feedback into business case and benefits management plan. Finalize business case and benefits management plan. Submit business case and benefits management plan. Receive approval of business case and benefits management plan. And then, of course, draft project charter. Conduct peer review of project charter. I know this part's kind of the dry part because obviously, actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make another summary underneath. I'm going to put business case and benefits management plan. And this is my project charter. There you go. Okay. Conduct peer review, incorporate peer review feedback into project charter. Finalize project charter. Submit project charter. Receive approval of project charter. All right, so as you see, these are our main tasks. We'll get to release implementation in just a moment. Just hang with me. So we're going to start linking things. We'll start adding in, oh, didn't mean to do that. There we go. I was trying to move this over just a little more. All right, so we're going to start linking stuff. So Agile project start, and we're going to link and link like this. Bam. Actually, I also like having the successors as well, just to make sure everything is there. I'm a stickler like that. That's just how I do things. I always make sure that there's predecessors and successors, which can be another stream where I can show you how to do a schedules 14-point analysis, and I can go into how that checks your schedule to make sure it's, well built, it is healthy, it can give you the information you need and to your client, blah 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 blah. It's great. All right, so these are all linked. Oh, they're not. So this is a great opportunity to see. So as you see, line 19 and 20 are linked together. So if you want to make these parallel, all you got to do is click in the predecessor column or successor, whichever. And next to the number, just put SS, which is start to start. And that makes your tasks start to start with each other. Then we're just going to kind of go through the motions. And I'll show you how to do lead and lag in just a moment. Then you link everything. So in order to link everything the way I just did, you on your keyboard, you have the task highlighted. You hold your control key down on your keyboard, and then you just start highlighting everything. If you're doing everything in sequential order, by the way. Then click. And of course, in task and schedule, there's this link. So I have this link button right here, and I just link it together. This is where you unlink tasks, so you don't want that. Now, why is this looking at December 12th? That is interesting. So, oh yeah, because we're trying to go back in time. That's right, because we don't want we want this to be 124. That's right, we're backwards planning. All right, so now that we've linked these, it's now time to move into, and I'm going to close this, into release implementation. So as I said, we're doing 5 releases. Release 1. Now, I'm going to show you how this works. Okay, so again, make a task, which you don't have to worry about anything below because it's new. So you got release 1. Now, let's say in release 1, I want to do, say, 4 sprints. We're going to do Scrum, basically. So we got sprint 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just making sure it keeps up. I think it's slowing down a little bit. There we go. So then I go sprint 1. Okay. So I got 4 sprints. Now, actually I could have done this differently. Hold on. I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to delete these. Don't mind me. Okay. So this is sprint 1. So I've got to plan the sprint, conduct sprint work, do testing, demo, host retrospective, and then do a checkpoint down here as sprint 1 complete. So I'm going to do that, and bam. Now, if you want to see a different way of doing an agile schedule in the future, please, again, let me know. Don't be shy. Reach out to me via, again, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, whichever platform you use the most, feel free to reach out to me. And also give me a follow and maybe even donate if you like. So, I have plan, plan sprint 1.1. Because it's release 1, sprint 1, okay? We're going to say activities because it could be user stories, it can be stories, it could be features, however you do it, right? Then conduct sprint 1.1 activities, test sprint 1.1 activities, host sprint 1.1 demo for product owner, host sprint 1.1 retrospective. Okay, so because I've finished this, I can now start the release and go in order. Now 2 of these are going to be in parallel, which is conduct the sprint 1.1 activities and the testing. You always want to test and make sure things work, okay? So you just don't want to checkpoint sprint complete. If I can actually spell today, that'll be great. There you go. Now we're not going to add durations quite yet. But so here's this really cool thing you could do. So I can close this, highlight, right click, copy, go to the next line. Actually, let me make sure add to task so it looks like I can add something. Yes. Right click, paste. And look at that. So now all I need to do is then go to replace. And I say sprint 1, change it to sprint 2. Okay. And then sprint 1.1 needs to turn to 2.1 or 1.2. There we go. Release 1, sprint 2. Okay. And I'm going to replace all. And done. And then here's a cool thing. And then rinse and repeat. And do it again. So sprint 1, change to sprint 3. Place. Then 1.1, change to 1.3. Release 1, sprint 3. Okay. And replace all. Okay. And one more time. We're going to do 4 sprints. Okay. So sprint 1. I really should say 1.4 or 1. Yeah, I'll do that later. Sprint 1, sprint 4. Place. And then 1.1 equals. You know what? I'm just going to do this. 1.1. 1.2. 1.3. 1.4. All right. Now, of course, there we go. So as you see, things are kind of linked. I just fixed this. Like that. And don't worry, it's okay if you make adjustments. Now, 62 goes up to release 1. So you just put 62. And now things are linked. Now, of course, you'll be like, well, how is this starting to look in terms of duration? I don't see how this is changing. So we can easily do that right now, since we've already kind of got the first release, because I'm going to show you the same technique we did for all the sprints. We'll do the same thing for the releases. So now that we kind of established that, we can move forward in doing this. So build business case document and benefits management plan. So let's say this takes, just for fun, 15 days. Conduct peer review of business case and benefits management plan. Let's just say 2 days. 5, 1, or 2, 1. Now, here's where we can add a lag. So, you see here that submit the business case and receive approval. Well, there's not much you're going to be doing in between those times, right? So, you would do a finish to start FS plus, let's just say 7 days. Oh, no, that's not it. It would be here, not the other way around. Should have done it in the successors, as you can see. Finish to start plus 7 days. And now as you see, and let's just say this is 1 day. Okay. So then we're going to do draft project chart. Do you see how the dates are shifting back? So this is going to be fun. So let's do 15 just for the same thing. Let's just do 2, 5, 2, 1. Okay, this is finish to start plus 7 days. We'll just keep consistency. As you see, the start date's pushing back. You see that? So right now we're at the initiating phase is completing like December, right? Which isn't right because we're trying to meet this date. We're backwards planning. So now we're going to go into here. And this is going to be another fun part. So sprint planning should take a day. A typical sprint takes 2 weeks. So you can do a demo and a half a day and that and a half a day. Now watch this. Copy. Paste. Paste. If I sound like I'm stopping here and there, don't mind me. There's some interesting things going outside and all that stuff. Okay. As you see, now I've got that. Now you're seeing how the dates are pushing and pushing. Look at that. Beautiful. So now again, we're going to do the fun part again. Just get rid of this. Let me just outdent this task. See what it does. Okay, cool. So hit Control and copy and paste. Aha, see that? Now I'm just gonna adjust the linking here. So I want release 1, which is 11, and 12 for release 2. So 11. There you go. Okay. So then all I need to do is replace. So I see release 1, need to release 2. Place. Okay, so sometimes it's also going to find things that have the same name, so don't worry about it. Okay, so now we're going to replace this with sprint 1.1. It's going to be now sprint 2.1. Meaning release 2, sprint 1. 1.2, 2.2. 1.3, 2.3. Find next, place all. All right, 0.4, 2.4, find next, replace all. And look at that. Now, again, we're backwards planning, so we need to see how things are turning out. All right, we're not looking too bad. We'll look like we'll start beginning of next year. It's not a bad thing. So again, just do this. Paste. Now, do you see how it's interesting that though we are building an agile schedule, everything is pretty waterfall? Fascinating, right? So 12 and 13. As you can see, 12. Okay. Okay. And then do the same thing like we did with release 2. Don't mind me if I'm not very talkative now. I don't need to kind of repeat over and over again what I'm doing. You can kind of see now. And next, replace all. Look at that. So now again, we're backwards planning. So what we gotta do, check the date. Oh boy. So it looks like we need to be starting in December of 22, potentially. So we'll see how that turns out. We've got probably going to do only 4 releases then. See, this is the beauty of having an auto schedule. You basically get to have the ability to say, okay, do we really need 5 releases or can we do it in less? So now we're going to do it one more time. $13 and $14. We don't need that anymore. And again, just the same thing again. We're doing release 1. Back. And there you go. And there is your schedule. And so now we just link this to complete. So as you can see, in order to get our finish date of January 1st, 2024, we need to start our project in September of 2022. Sorry, you can see there's some issues, right? So we either have to accept that or we have to make adjustments, right? So we're gonna do one more thing first. And we're gonna add our resources to the tasks and see how that kind of works out for us, okay? I just want to get rid of this. I don't want you to have to worry about that. Now, keep in mind when you're adding resources though, you never assign resources to milestones. Why? Because they're 0 duration basically. And oh, here's the pretty picture by the way. Just for fun, just so you can see. Which I'll show you how to make this look pretty afterwards. Right now you got to build everything and make it essential. Okay. So you have the business case and benefits management plan. So oh, come on. See, things are slowing down. Microsoft projects getting finicky. Ah, see that? Interesting, right? Conduct peer review. So insert resource group. Where's my PMO? Do that. Access testing. Okay, business. Sally? Nope, that's development. There we go. Okay. Then we're gonna put Jessica. Oh yeah, I should have actually put a client as well. Okay, so no one's going to be assigned to that. Well, we should receive approval. There you go. Okay, so actually let me also add some costs. So here's the cost column, which is starting to look really cool. And then actual cost, because you want to know how much it's costing you as we perform the work, right? So as you see, as you start adding resources, look at the cost increases, right? Draft project charter. Let's say Jessica, John, Mike. Actually, you know what? Maybe not Mike. Okay. Mike. Now, as you see here, there's a status indicator. It's going to tell you whether I'm over allocating or not, but we're not there, and we're probably not going to see that until we start statusing, which we might get to, we might not, just depends. It is getting late. Right, Jessica submits. Okay. So as you see, it's calculating based on that rate that we built in for everybody. So the more resources you add, the more expensive things get, right? So if you got very expensive resources, your cost for each these tasks that they're assigned to is going to get more and more expensive. Okay, so we need Alex, Sally, and Peggy. Yes. No, he was testing, engineering, development. It's development, testing. Nope, Peggy. And then now you could do this. Bam. And again. And again. And again. So I'm just saving time and not having to click and click and click every, single line. All right, so there you go. So now we've resource loaded everything. And as you can see, consistently, all your releases are the same amount of money. Uh-oh, I gotta slow down. Oh no. All right, so here's a warning about Microsoft Project. The more data you add, the slower it gets on desktop. And oh, by the way, it's not fun. And it might actually crash on you. Like it's kind of doing to me right now. Though on the screen you probably aren't seeing it. But as you can see, when I try to move up, it's taking forever. It might crash. We don't know. Oh man. Oh man, this file is done. It's probably gonna crash. Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, this is what happens when you overload Microsoft Project. It gets funky. So, if we wanted to just see all the releases match in terms of numbers, you can just see that automatically. So, now, if you want to have a pretty Gantt chart, come on now, don't be shy. As you can see, it's kind of already doing some stuff, but we're going to change that. So, in the Gantt chart area, you want to go to bar styles. And as you see, it's already automatically on task. So here you go to text. So on here you could put name. And on the right, you can do finish date, whatever you want. You can even put resources if you like. It's completely up to you. And as you see, look how pretty everything is. And then you're going to do the same thing for summary. Now remember though, in order to do that, you got to highlight it, and then you can do okay. And as you see, your summaries have their names. Now if you want to see milestones, do the same thing with the milestones. Highlight text, name. It says task finish, but just change it to finish. It's not a big deal. Oh, and also, if you want to make things cool, you can say like your milestone shape could be whatever you want it to be. So like a star. And maybe you want it to be bright, like yellow. So now if you see, there's our bright star of our start of our agile project. And then of course, because you can't see everything, right? Now you can either do it one of two ways. You can do it here or up here. So if you do it up here, you gotta right click on the time on this area, the gray right here, and go to time scale. And as you see, this is where you change middle and bottom tier. So our middle tier is in weeks. I like doing months. Or actually, I like doing, actually it should be years. Okay. And then bottom tier, I do months. And hit okay. And look at that. Now everything kind of looks put together a little bit. But again, you can also just adjust it here at the bottom. And see everything right there. So now you have a pretty Gantt chart. Now, before we start using any of the fancy reports and such, we have to do what is called baselining. I think this will maybe be a different session because I don't think I could go over practically everything. But let's just say, and actually I'm just going to get rid of these. You get it now. You get it how it works. Okay. So now you can baseline it. So baselining is so much fun when you get into the real world because some people think you should just baseline the entire schedule and that's it. And that's how it is. Or you be agile and not really baseline anything, which doesn't make sense because you got to have some way of measurement, right? So you could baseline in increments, which in project management terms we call progressive elaboration, which is meaning you just plan out little chunks over time. And Agile tends to emphasize that more and more, I want to say like more regularly versus progressive elaboration. You can kind of choose at your own choice how often, which I've seen. But for the sake of the project, because this is not a real life project, I think we're just going to show how it's all baselined, okay? So all you need to do is just highlight the first line, and then on your keyboard you hit Control Shift and then the down arrow. Just going to give it a minute. There you go. Then you go to the Project tab. In the Schedule section, there is Set Baseline. So you click on the down arrow, you set the baseline. Now, if you were doing projects in the real world and incrementally planning things out, you would hit the select task and then check these two boxes. But for the sake of this exercise, we're just going to do entire project and hit OK. So now we have set our baseline cost. Let me insert. Actually, let me put it over in the baseline area. So this is our baseline, okay? And what a baseline does, it allows you to manage your project based upon what you agreed to do. This is where I was telling you, if again, go back to the first two streams where we talked about how the baseline, the project management plan is your baseline in how you're going to do everything from beginning to end, right? So this is a baseline for your schedule. This is how you're going to manage and make sure that you're basically walking your talk and that you said you're going to do as you planned accordingly. Now, here's some cool things. And I think in the next stream, I might do, instead of doing everything right now, I think I'll do it in the next stream, like additional stuff, but that may be an in-betweener type thing between different subjects as I'm trying to figure things out. So there's these cool reports here, and we're going to use these probably in the next stream that I continue this project, right? So you have progress, in progress kind of reports. So you got critical tasks, which this is based upon calculation. If it will show you anything. So as you see, these are our critical tasks. And it's pretty much showing everything because we haven't started any work, basically. Okay. But that's very helpful, right? To some degree. You got a late task report, which tells you if you're making progress. These are the tasks that are late based upon what your forecast is saying versus what your baseline's saying. Then you have a milestone report, which I'll show you. I think this one's really neat. So this one tells you what are late milestones, which according to our project plan, it's the start milestone, which we're starting in September. But again, in the next stream, we'll probably go over, just recap and add a couple more holidays for this year because we didn't include this year. We only included 2023. And of course, what's the next, upcoming milestone, which is of course the start milestone. But of course, when we start doing more progress and adding progress to the tasks, you're going to see this kind of adjust and change over time. So going back to reports, then you have slipping tasks. These are tasks that are going to become late based upon how you're statusing. And that's where the percent complete column comes into play, because that's where it will help with the calculation of, okay, is something later on time or, a future or whatever. Then you got a cost report. So we got a cash flow report that's just showing, the cash flowing in. You got cost overruns report, which is things are overrunning. Earn value report, which will be really cool to see when we start statusing, shows you the comparison of, and if you're kind of familiar with EVM, that's fine. If you're not, basically earn value management is a system that helps you be able to identify, again, if you're walking your talk. So that takes your schedule variance, schedule performance index, cost performance index, and compares that to your BAC. Oh, someone's dog was barking outside. Anyways, that will be able to compare your budget, right, which is your BAC, your budget at completion, or also your planned value, right? Then you have resource cost overview, which is how much it's costing per resource. I think it's not going to show anything at the moment. Yeah. So when we actually start to do actual work and status the schedule, you'll start to see the cost distribution change over time, and you'll start to see what the actual work was and cost was based on the standard rate per resource. And as you can see, this also will show what your actuals were, what's your baseline, and what's your remaining. And that's going to be pretty cool too. And let's see, task cost overview. So this kind of does a breakdown of each, the overall cost here, which again, you're going to kind of see over time with the task, but right now we haven't status anything. Then, of course, you have the resource report. So you have two reports. You got overallocated resources, which if you did, this would show who's overallocated and what's remaining, what's actual, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have, of course, the resource overview, which gives you an understanding of when resources start and finish, what is their remaining work, et cetera, et cetera. So this kind of helps you understand when are certain resources going to roll off the project, for example, which is a fantastic way of looking at it. And then you got dashboards. So you have a burn down, which in Agile you can use because that can show the number of features or epics or however you categorize it, right? You have your baseline, you have how much work you have, and over time, the completion of it, as you see here. So we have remaining cumulative work here because we haven't started anything. Then we have the baseline, which is gray. And then when we start to actually status the report, again, the schedule, we're going to see the remaining cumulative work is blue. Same thing over here. So baseline remaining tasks, it will be in blue, meaning what we've got remaining task, which is this orange, which that's going to fluctuate. And then the gray is the remaining actual task, which will also fluctuate. Then we have cost overview, which is kind of similar again, but it kind of breaks it differently. So you got total costs and remaining costs, your progress versus cost, and your cost status, and then of course overall right here. So, your actual, your remaining, your baseline, your cost and cost variance. Then you have project overview, which is also really cool. So it shows you percent complete of your project overall, percent complete, per task, milestones, and what are late. And you'll see the checkpoints are in there too, which is totally fine. But you're more interested in seeing just an overview, so this is perfect for that. Then you have upcoming tasks. And again, this is kind of similar to something else. So as you see, you got the percent of work complete. You also have upcoming task remaining and then what is starting soon. And then finally, the work overview, which again shows based on hours remaining for your particular resources, percent complete, remaining work hours, which is this is the total versus actual. And then you see kind of this graph here, remaining availability based on dates and so forth. So that would be based on your people and the dates that they're supposed to be, rolling off or whatever. And they're based on this color coding right here. And that's going to be very helpful when you start statusing the project. So that is your built-in reports. So I'm going to go back to task and Gantt chart over here. And as you see, this is your Gantt. So this is a schedule that we just built from scratch. I think we're kind of out of time in my mind. It's a little late. So I think in a different stream, probably not the next stream, which will be in 2 weeks. So let me check what date that is. Oh, well, that's not going to work. It's going to land on Thanksgiving. Wow. So, you know what? Usually, again, I'm going to repeat. Usually, we're going to have a stream every 2 weeks, but because of the holiday season, that's kind of making that difficult. So, next week, we will have another Twitch stream on November 17th. And since that's not going to be enough time for me to finish up on the subject that I'm going to talk about next, we'll continue on with this Microsoft project and kind of work through all the cool, nifty little things that can happen and all that stuff, and what you can do with the schedule and what you can do with Microsoft Project. So I will leave the floor open for any questions. Again, if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me again on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, or TikTok. I'm available there. Again, I appreciate everyone's time, and thank you again, PM Peeps, and I will see you next time.